Something meaningful is happening across Canada. People from many backgrounds, including those raised Christian or with no religion, are quietly taking a closer look at Islam. There's no pressure or a big campaign behind it. It often starts with private questions, late-night reading, and a moment when faith finally fits. These private journeys are reshaping pockets of life, from Toronto to Vancouver and in small prairie towns. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islam's Light. If this story moves you, please subscribe and join our journey. You feel it at kitchen tables and in text messages between old friends. Census data show the Muslim share of Canada's population has grown noticeably in recent decades, and part of that growth includes people who were raised in other beliefs, or none at all. That rise shows up in conversations, classrooms, and workplaces. Who among their neighbors will notice first, and what will they assume when they do? Numbers can sound dry, but they change daily life. Over the last 2 decades, the Muslim proportion of Canada's population has grown substantially, and that shift shows up in school cafeterias, grocery aisles, and prayer rooms at work. These are not abstract stats. They are neighborhoods changing together. As these numbers rise, which parts of public life will adapt first and which will resist? In the city, faith becomes visible. A mosque sign, a halal shop window, a hijab on the bus. Visibility gives new adherents resources and networks, but it also makes private choices public. Urban spaces teach both shelter and exposure. When a private search becomes a public identity, who pays the cost? Many people describe conversion as study and testing. They talk about nights with books, conversations with mentors, and slow, careful reflection. That deliberation gives commitment weight and reshapes relationships with family and friends. Once a choice is made with full knowledge, will home still feel like home? Demographers and global studies suggest continued growth in the coming decade. Projections are not destiny, but they matter for planning. Schools, community services, and city infrastructure all depend on what the data suggests. Planning with compassion and facts helps communities adapt. If institutions fail to adapt, what fracture lines might appear first? Older research sometimes framed converts through security lenses and missed the human detail. Newer first-person interviews show seekers, mentors, and neighbors, people negotiating identity, not plotting politics. We have to listen to lived experience before drawing broad conclusions. How long will public discourse take to catch up to actual lives? Conversion is often inward and patient. Interviews describe repeated doubt, slow answers, and gradual clarity. People arrive through philosophy, friendship, crisis, or curiosity. When private doubt becomes a public declaration, who stands with the seeker? A dangerous myth links conversion to extremism. Evidence and testimonies show most new adherents seek stability, clear ethics, and community. Misreading this process harms careers, families, and reputations. We need nuance, not panic. If myths die slowly, who will repair what they broke? Place matters. Ontario, Quebec, Alberta, and British Columbia have the largest communities, but local life feels different across provinces. In big cities, networks are easy to find. In smaller towns, mentors are rarer. Local context changes how people learn and belong. When someone seeks belonging in their province, what doors will open and which will stay closed? Mosques are often classrooms, kitchens, and counseling rooms as much as places to pray. Newcomers learn ritual, etiquette, and community norms there. These institutions can anchor a life when everything else feels uncertain. If a mosque is a lifeline, what happens when that lifeline frays? For many, the idea of one God provides clarity. Tawhid gives a lens that unifies belief and practice. That theological center often helps people reorder priorities and make sense of conflicting answers. If Tawhid answers big questions, which small human ones remain unresolved? Readers often describe the Quran as immediate and personal. A passage can feel like a direct conversation that pushes curiosity into conviction. Study circles, translations, and recitations make the text accessible across languages. When a text answers the heart, can daily life always follow? Islam offers an integrated architecture for life, family, business ethics, ritual, and social duty. For people who felt scattered, that coherence can heal drift. But building new routines asks for realignment in relationships and work. What parts of an old life must change for a new architecture to hold? 5 daily prayers carve the day into moments of presence. Many converts say ritual reduces anxiety and trains attention. Those pauses create steadiness in busy lives. If prayer reorders life, how does the world outside respond to that rhythm? Charity turns belief into action. Zakat, tzedakah, and volunteer work direct faith toward neighbors in need. Service keeps belief from staying private and builds bridges across communities. When faith becomes public service, who defines what justice looks like? There is no single convert profile. Teenagers, parents, professionals, and retirees all find their way. Women are central to this story and often lead local conversations about dignity. The diversity shows appeal crosses generations and classes. If anyone can be called to faith, what does that mean for Canada's sense of itself? Change carries costs. Conversion can strain family ties, careers, and predictable belonging. Not every person weathers that without support. Mentorship, counseling, and workplace accommodation can be life-saving. When community care fails, who becomes responsible for the one left adrift? Visible faith markers change how people are perceived. Some converts face new racialization, and women who wear visible coverings sometimes face hostility. Visibility brings both belonging and risk. Protection and solidarity matter. When visibility becomes vulnerability, how do people protect fragile gains? Converts often act as translators between secular life and Muslim communities. Their lived experience gives credibility on both sides. They become teachers, mediators, and witnesses who help the wider public listen with less fear and more nuance. If converts lead the conversation, will the rest of Canada listen? The rising number of people adopting Islam is a call for deeper engagement. Mentorship, education, fair media coverage, and practical services strengthen social cohesion. If Canadian institutions respond with openness, a resilient, homegrown community can flourish. Will the country rise to meet this moment, or will fear shape the next chapter? As we reach the end, it's clear that Canada's Muslim community is more than numbers. Every statistic represents a person exploring faith, finding meaning, and building connections. Growth comes quietly through daily choices and small acts of devotion. This story reminds us that understanding comes from respect, curiosity, and seeing the humanity behind every figure.